Hello, everyone. This is Between Two Teachers, a place where we talk about education issues far and wide, and we tell you our opinion about them. And we like to give best practices and offer our perspective as former teachers, and know that education is our passion. And sometimes we have good news, sometimes bad news, sometimes both. So today is March 12th, and my name is Consuelo Lara.
My name is Madeline Cronenberg. And as always, we will begin with our labor and body recognition and then our land acknowledgement. The labor and body recognition is the same that is used by West Contra Costa Unified School District and written by Dr. Rochelle Rogers Ard. I acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. I remember that Black and brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. I also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as these United States. And I thank you, Dr. Rogers Ard, for that. And I will do our land acknowledgement next. We pause to acknowledge that we have gathered on the ancestral territory of Hui Chin, part of the unceded land of the Muwekma, of the Chochenyo and Karkan speaking Muwekma Ohlone people. We remember their continued connection to this region and give thanks to them for allowing us to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland, and offer our respect to all their elders and all Ohlone people, past and present. And we remind you that you can find join us in continuing to support the Ohlone people in their battle to be recognized by the United States government as a tribe and receive the benefits of such tribal recognition by going to Justice for Muwekma. Just Google that, Justice for Muwekma. And to learn more about our tribes and the history of this region, you can go to the East Bay Regional Park District website and put in Ohlone curriculum. And they have there, you'll find the curriculum for the Bay Miwok and Delta Yoka peoples, and see what is being taught in California schools regarding our history, the changes that have been made over the years to teach it. And also at our county website, the County Office of Education.
Want to know more about land acknowledgement and how to proceed with that process on West Contra Costa, Contra Costa County Office of Education web page. There's about CCOE, and you can link down to land acknowledgement. It's been in the news about some museums and universities who are holding on to some Native American artifacts and even remains that the tribes have been trying to get back. And one of the things, the criteria for releasing these things, they say, is, it has to be a registered tribe or nation. And so that's why this is so important. And I think I had shared that when I went to Washington, D.C., to the Native American Museum there, they have all these flags of those that are recognized.
Right.
And so that acknowledgement, that recognition is very, very important for them to get back some of those artifacts and return them to their place where they're supposed to be. So this is a very important thing to stay caught up on and to help support um, those, getting that recognition. Absolutely. So it is, has been in the news lately. All right. So
It
thank you.
has, and it will continue to be. And so we will continue to acknowledge it because it really does make a difference. And I really appreciate more and more um, institutional meetings, right? Business meetings, public meetings that do include the recognitions at the beginning of their meetings for at least the land acknowledgements and also now the labor acknowledgements.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on nationally. We're going to talk a little bit about national news just because I wanted to point this out. We have spent time here talking about the teacher shortage, and the teacher shortage is a real and an important thing across the United States. And what's interesting that we don't often mention is the fact that the teacher shortage looks different in different states because the requirements to be a teacher are different. And in New York State, they're now looking at the teacher shortage in a different way because they have a requirement that we don't have in California, that only 2 other states have, that in order to be a teacher, you have to have a master's degree to receive your certification.
Yep. Yep.
Not a California thing.
Yeah. And they're well paid. They're better paid, let's say.
Yeah, they are. They are.
When they have the masters. Yeah.
Right. But they're looking at having a national board certification, having a requirement for national board certification instead of the masters, because the masters takes many years and it can take, especially if you're going part-time, you're doing it while you're student teaching or whatever. The national board certification is much more classroom focused.
Yes, and we've talked about that program a few times here.
Yes.
And it's just really, really important for people to know how valuable that certification is and how extensive it is to go through this process. There's videotaping, and then there's groups, and there's feedback, and there's you. It just makes you a better. It makes you a master teacher, is what it does, and then it puts you at the position where you can then teach others to be master teachers. And so it's just an amazing program. It's also expensive, and not everybody can afford to do it. And we feel like it should be a perk or
exactly.
So
right.
pay for to be a master teacher. We all need to promote this and encourage it. Absolutely.
It really does make an enormous difference to be able to have the options that you get if you go through that program, because what you have is the ability to be reflective and receive feedback on your performance in a way that no other program really has found a way to do.
No.
And that's why it's so valuable.
You take it with you wherever you go. If you want to go to another place, and that would make you even more hireable and desirable. Right. Any place you want to go teach. So
right. And it really should be, honestly, you could look at it and say it should be a national standard.
Yes.
Right. That's really what we would hope you have. And when I've looked at it, excuse me, there are some states that have many more teachers who are in this, but New York State has very few. And then now I realize it's because they all have master's degrees.
The masters, they've been putting their energy there. So now they've changed that.
Over. Now at least they're offering an option, right? Yes. Because that's what they're trying to do. Just as every state they're all trying to find ways to look at options to be able to bring more students and more even career folks in to become classroom teachers. So this is one more that New York is looking at. Yeah. Okay, so the next one is, and we are going to talk about this locally. The biggest story we have locally right now, well, there's a number of them, but one of the biggest ones has to do with the removal of a principal. All right, and it's not the removal; it's the demotion of a principal.
Yeah, we're having a real problem with the process of this whole thing. And, without getting too specific, but the care, what we found was missing is that the taking care of how painful this might be to the students, the community, the parents, and how delicate this is. I mean, we don't know a whole lot about it because it's a personnel issue and it's
Right,
confidential, and you're not supposed to know anything because you're
right.
taking care of that individual's privacy. And so, but the same care also needs to be taken care of. This was a beloved individual. And my criteria, like, where's your line? Is whether or not somebody hurts in any way a student directly, indirectly, causes them harm, makes them unsafe. That's one kind of mistake, and if it's not that, it could be other kinds of things. So, taking all those things into consideration, what's the most gentle way to do these things, so that there isn't so much harm? And not to react in a knee jerk way, not to embarrass or humiliate people, but to be more thoughtful about it. We just feel like that was not taken. That was
Yeah.
not, that was not,
And there's a there's a timing thing,
yes.
right? And so that the way a school year runs is it runs until June. And when you're going to make decisions then about somebody's uh, uh, circumstances around their employment, that's the appropriate time to make them. And rather than make them in the middle of the year, like they're making them right now. And it's bringing incredible pain and um, distraction to
Yes.
to the community, to the learning community. And I think that really is the thing that maybe was overlooked as they, and I'm sure that the people involved, you know, thought through everything as carefully as they could and had long conversations. We know that that happened. But I think really the level of distraction that has resulted is, um, I don't know that it was anticipated to be the degree that it is. And that's um, because when people are in leadership for a long time and are good and strong leaders, there's a huge reaction to their loss.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what we've seen.
And it's matter what you do, but also when you do it. When you do that, the process and how it affects everybody.
Yeah, so it's going to be it makes it a very, very difficult year for everyone, everyone involved. And I
Oh,
hope everyone learns from the process that's going on right now to see how everyone could have managed it better. Because I really think that this is a huge amount of pain and dislocation and distraction that it maybe could have been done in a very different way. Because I've seen people moved for a whole variety of reasons, uh, but the most successful were done when they thought at the same time you're thinking of the reason for a specific personnel move. You're also very much involved in considering the the impact it will have on the community. And it doesn't mean you don't make the move, but you make it at a time when the community would be the least impacted.
yeah, yeah. And everybody
Right.
has to know those decisions, those personnel issues are done confidentially and closed session. And that's the time when the HR or superintendent brings those issues to the board, and then the board has to think it over and ask questions and find out how they feel about it. And then you go to open session, but you can't reveal too much except, make a decision.
Now, and because there's still a process that is available to employees and that has to play itself out even after decisions are made. And all of that is private.
Yes. As
I
it
mean,
should.
it's private, and unless the only person who can reveal anything is the person whose privacy it is, right? And it's up to them to make the revelations and reveal it. And we certainly don't know anything. We are not on any board and don't know anything. What we're doing is seeing it from the outside, but we're seeing the pain and impact it's having on the community at large. So that's all our comments are going to here.
Yeah. And I think you make that good point about the disruption in the learning. It is a distraction. It is a distraction, and you should not deliberately create that in a community, in a school, when you could have
Right.
waited a couple months and taken care of it at that time. So
All right. It would have played out differently. So
yeah. Yep.
so it's just something to be conscious of. I mean, when we talk about education, there are lots of different things that happen, and there are things you can control, things that you can't control, but timing is often something you can control,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Even, in something like this.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, moving on. I was going to talk a little bit about where is this? About labor. So here's an unusual two labor stories. Right? The first one has to do with our CTA, which is the labor representative for teachers. And one of the many big things they're doing right now is a push for a bill that would give pregnancy leave to educators. And shockingly, many people think this exists already, but it does not.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
So this is a really important bill. The time is now. CTA is pushing it. Mr. Thurmond is pushing it. There should be no one against this. You're talking about the teacher shortage. This is a perfect example of a bill that needs to be passed by the California legislature so that our young pregnant teachers get the leave that they deserve, that they would get in other industries. There are other industries that do it as a matter of course. The tech industry does it.
Yeah.
But not teachers.
So now during Women's History Month, hey, let's get this done.
Exactly. The second story, and this is an unusual story, but yet here it is at higher education at Dartmouth, and it has to do with the Dartmouth basketball team. And the Dartmouth basketball team has decided to form a union or join a local union. They are unionized. They are unionized athletes, the first college athletes we've seen recently college athletes are starting to be paid. That was because Ms. Skinner, our local state senator, passed the law and created a national uproar over the law that she did. So college athletes could get some money for the use of their images and their work. Well, this is so that the basketball players, the basketball team at Dartmouth can be considered employees and negotiate for their work.
That's right. That's right. They can get their rights and be respected for their work and acknowledged. And I think it's
it is absolutely, people should be paid for their work, right? Yes. Just like what we did with the student board members. Student board members should be paid when they're going. Yep. These people, these are students, these are young, in this case, young men and women, and I guess this young men on this particular team, who made the case that they're working, that the school is making money from them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh,
right, and just giving them a deal on tuition is not the same as them being a union and being able to negotiate for their working conditions. So, three cheers to the Dartmouth hoops players.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them. And the other shout out, so we've got one more story. I'll just say this briefly about the voucher story.
Oh yeah.
But we need to follow this. In our red states, the Republican states, over the last few years, there have been more and more voucher bills that are passed. And these are bills that allow students to receive a voucher, and that would be in the same amount of money that the state would spend on you per year in a public school. Get a voucher for that amount, and then you can take it to a private school or a parochial school and essentially pay your tuition there. And that's the idea of making sure that there are more options available to all of these students. And at one point, it was in some places they were limited to the students who would be eligible would be coming from underperforming schools or students who were low income students. But more and more, and in some places those restrictions still exist, but in other places those restrictions are being lifted so that it becomes more equitable and everyone gets to participate. So in everyone, that means everyone, people who are as high, totally high income people. And then all private schools get to participate. And so this could be private nonprofit schools, private for-profit schools, private parochial schools, whoever you may be who are running a school. And what is happening in some states is that, in some places across the United States, is that the private schools are seeing this as what it is. It's a cash cow. So if all of a sudden there's a whole group of people who are in your school who suddenly have access to this voucher, this discount ticket, they're just saying, we're going to raise our rates by that amount. Just be sure to go get your money and they'll just pick it up.
Yeah, so there'll be no effect at all. And
yeah, just a transfer of money from the taxpayer to the shareholder of the private school.
That's exactly right. Once again, it's our taxpayer money that just gets shifted on to for profit for somebody else. So, and who's the loser on this, or who are the people that don't? Is that our children who don't leave public school have less money, even less money than we already have.
Because it's not like we suddenly grew the pot in order to accommodate these other children. No, pot is the same. It's just that many more children are now carving it up, and it's being carved up and handed to these other schools. So it's a problem, but it's what's happening is that we are that these states are subsidizing. They're subsidizing the private schools, and they're subsidizing some of their wealthiest families in those schools.
Absolutely.
Yes. So that's it. It's a bait and switch. It's what's been called a bait and switch voucher program.
There you go. The description.
Yeah, it is. It is.
All right.
So the last one I think we want to talk about is the wonderful work of Justin Jones, who was one of our shout outs earlier this year. Justin Jones was a former student in the Hercules High School in West Contra Costa, and he's gone on to Tennessee, where he's one of the Tennessee Three, where last year he was, because he was advocating for a gun control legislation after a horrific massacre of children in Tennessee. He and one other person, who were three originally, he was thrown out of the General Assembly, right? They expelled him because of his activity, and he wound up getting reelected immediately.
Yep.
And became a major celebrity of sorts, as he well deserved to be, and the other young man who was expelled with him. Yeah. And now they came back, so they both got reelected immediately and are back in the same General Assembly body in Tennessee. And Mr. Sexton, who is the leader of that body, the speaker, has proposed some rules once again against Representative Jones.
Yeah, he's targeted. I mean, just blatantly racism, and it's just so obvious. And they're trying to limit the number of fans who want to come and watch.
The number of people who can be there, because he had a lot of people who were supporting him. They want to limit if they expel him again, they want to make it so that he can't run for office for 4 years, and make it illegal for anybody, for the county board, to nominate him. The two things that happened that brought him back within a few weeks, right? They want to make illegal.
Yeah, let's just get rid of democracy.
Yes,
That's
right. Because they're looking at it, well, what was the problem? The problem is that it came back, right? Not that the problem is them.
Yeah, exactly. No, you can't be the one.
So, but Mr. Jones is going to win. He's going
Yeah.
to, he's definitely going to win. And this is so blatant. This is, I mean, you can't, it's ridiculous what they're doing, but it just shows where we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Shout
shows
out to
where we
him.
are.
He's a fighter. He's a fighter.
He's a
We're
major
very proud of him, and he's a great role model for our young people.
He is for everybody, for everybody. And then another great role model on your board.
Yes, I have to shout out to trustee Anne Marie Farias, who is going to go on to in this last election. So she was the top two, and will go in November for a seat in the assembly. So yeah, shout out to Anne Marie. She's really doing it. She's a mover and shaker. I mean, she is the most like articulate and charismatic person, you know, if you've ever met her. So she's doing it. She's on her way.
She'll make a great assemblywoman.
Yes, absolutely. So
It's coming up.
Yep.
So a shout out to her. And she's in great company with Justin Jones, let me tell you.
Right.
Right, another assemblyman. He's another, but she too will be a fighter, just like Justin.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it for us for this week. We'll come back and see you again and give you updates on everything that's happening in education next week between two teachers.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.